So we're going to be starting a new series. You know me, I like series. And the reason why I preach in series is because there's so much to say, and the best way is to divide it into a few weeks. And especially with the topic that we're going to be looking at in the next few weeks. And the series, you might be excited about it. I'm not sure. I've got a bit of a reservation if you are going to be excited or not. You might be excited to be a part of this discussion that we're going to have for the next few weeks, or you might be coming here against your will, and you're going to give this like one shot, okay? And if you don't love it, maybe you're going to say, I'm not coming back. And I hope that's not the case. But I get it, you know. I mean, talking about money makes people really nervous. And to be honest, it's not my favorite topic to preach on either. But sometimes in the life of the church, in the calendar of the church, and sometimes when the church goes through a bit of a dip in finance and so on, one has to sort of remind us what the finance of the church is all about. So agreeing to spend hours talking about money, well, I don't know. You may feel like this is a punishment, but I promise if you stick with me, our time together may be a turning point. A turning point for myself, for you in more than just one way, more than just a financial way. And here's why. Because for the next few weeks, we're not just going to talk about money, we're going to let our money do the talking. So we're going to let our money do the talking. And this is not going to be a weird thing. We're just going to kind of flip the script. Okay? We're going to look at it in a different way. You know, the one thing that your money might be telling you is buy me some groceries, pay the bills, going to saving. But what if instead we allow our money to talk to us differently? And more so, not that our money talking to us, but maybe we listen. We begin to listen to what our money is really saying. What if we invite our money to sort of pull up a chair and give us some advice? What would our money say if our money could talk? Now the truth is, some of us would probably rather not hear from our money. Okay? We already know what it might tell us. It will probably sound like a disappointed parent. You know, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed about you, and for a good reason. Because some of our financial decisions in hindsight, well, they really don't make much sense. We'd expect our money advice to be, well, pretty much common sense. We'd expect our money to say pretty much the same thing that a financial planner would say, or maybe an accountant would say, or maybe a wise parent would say. But what might surprise us, hopefully pleasantly surprise us, is that what our money would say, if our money could talk, actually matches what Jesus said about money. When he talked about money over 2,000 years ago. Now, if you grew up around church, you probably heard this before. And the saying that Jesus actually said more about money than just about everything else. In fact, he said more about money than he said about heaven. Did you realize that? If you look at the pages of the scriptures, he said more about money, spoke more about money than he actually spoke about heaven. In fact, we can tell Jesus really never asked for money. And he didn't speak about money because he needed money, because he actually never asked for money. He wasn't after people's money, he was after something else. But it was not the money. And we'll talk about that more in the coming weeks. Now, before we go to the first thing anything our money might tell us if our money starts talking, I want to ask you a question. And I want you to answer that in your own mind. And I know this is going to sound like a strange question. But here's the question. What do you do with your spare money? What do you do with your spare money? Not your spare change, your extra rand, your mullah, your geld. Okay? What are you going to do with your spare rands? Well, the ones that you don't really need. That's what my question is. And it's not a tricky question. And if you are thinking to yourself, well, who has spare rands lying around? Sometimes I'll spare a few rands for a good cause here and there, but I don't have any extra money, and I certainly don't have any extra money lying around. And technically, that's true. You don't have extra money just lying around, but you do have extra. I have extra. And the question I want to ask you is, have you ever taken a vacation? Have you ever taken a vacation in the past couple of years? Do you have a car? Do you have more than one car? Do your kids have a car? Does your car have its own little house where it comes and parks? Have you ever driven a perfectly good car to a car lot and then left it there and drove away in another perfectly good car, but a newer model that you use out of some of your extra money to purchase? How about this? When you went to purchase your current cell phone, did you walk into the store with a perfectly good cell phone in your pocket? Of course you did. You see, when we have that extra money, we don't wait for things to break. We upgrade. We upgrade. We trade it in. Or how about this? And don't raise your hands if you've ever done this. But have you ever gone to your kitchen, a kitchen that has beautiful countertops, microwave oven, an oven, a refrigerator, and then you rip it out and then use some of your spare money to replace it with another countertop, another fridge, a microwave, and an oven. The question is, as hard as it is, do you have so much spare money that you actually pay someone to keep track of your money? Like someone else's job is to take care of all of your money and invest it so it turns into more extra money. We all do that to an extent, don't we? And I'm not saying that it's bad. As I said, listen right until the end. But when you think about what I just said, what do you know? You do have spare money. You just don't feel like you do, and the reason why you don't feel like you do is a word that we don't like to talk about. It's a word that starts with the letter G that the Bible speaks about quite a lot. And it's the word called greed. It's hard to see greed in a mirror. Now, I can see greed in other people's mirror, but it's hard for me to see greed in my own mirror. In fact, I've never had a conversation with anyone who was having financial problems who said, you know what, my problem is greed. I've never had that kind of a conversation. What you do hear people say is, I'm just careful. I'm a good manager. I'm a saver. Again, it is very difficult to see greed in the mirror, and yet greed is behind much of our financial struggles. And greed is behind a lot of the financial stress. Maybe the definition could help us to understand. Greed is the assumption that it's all for my consumption. Greed is the assumption that it's all for my consumption. You see, you can be poor and greedy, or you can be rich and greedy. Greed has nothing nothing to do with an amount of money. Nothing. Certainly, the Bible doesn't see it that way. It has everything to do with an assumption about money. So your rags become things. They become a house. They become things in your house. They become a car. And you just consume. Or maybe you do the opposite. Some of you don't spend all of your extra money and you just keep it. And of course, we don't call that hoarding, we call it saving. But the same assumption that drives some people to spend is the same assumption that drives some people to save. Because who are you saving it for? After all, it's yours. Different habits, but the same assumption. The consumption assumption. And most of us are guilty of that. In our men's meetings on Saturday, Bill keeps on saying, you never see a host driving out of a funeral with a trailer in the back of all your stuff, do you? When you die, it all stays behind. We don't feel like we have to spend money because we either consume it now, spending, buying, upgrading, or we stash it away in the bank. But either way, it's for me. It's for me now, or it's for me later. And Jesus says that it is a faulty assumption. And he points to a completely different way of viewing money. And when we begin to view our money the way Jesus does, it changes not only our finances, honestly, it changes everything in our life. It gets us off the treadmill of more, me, and it's a completely different paradigm shift, and it leads to freedom, to contentment, and ultimately to satisfaction. Now here is how Jesus introduces the topic. Here's what he said. He said, watch out, be on your guard against all kind of greed. Now remember, he sees greed, the Bible sees greed differently. It's about the assumption of consumption. He says that those of us making the consumption assumption, spending it all, or saving it all, assuming that everything that comes to us is for us, he says, hold on. Wait a minute. And then he continues and he says, life does not consist in an abundance of possession. In other words, life is more than just stuff. It's more than our possession or even our potential to acquire more possession. And the fact is that most of us, think about this, most of us are going to run out of time, don't we? Before we run out of stuff, we're going to run out of time. How many people in this town alone? They were here yesterday, had a massive heart attack, gone. They were here yesterday, ended up with corona, ended up in the hospital, 39 years old, 45 years old, 61-year-old, men, women. We run out of time, don't we? We're going to die with a whole lot of stuff left over. Stuff somebody is going to maybe pick through, sell, and then perhaps just throw the rest away. I was told of someone who died in this time who was a collector of many things, and his wife was just throwing things away. I don't know if she knew the value of those things or not, but she was just throwing things away. You see, if life consists of possessions, we would run out of life. The moment we run out of possessions, and while we know that that's not the case, it's so easy to fall into the trap of living as if life is nothing more than accumulation of more. And Jesus' point is something our money might point out if our money could talk, is this very thing. If our money could talk, it may say something like this: I can add meaning to your life, but I'm not the meaning of your life. Listen to it again. Our money might say to us, I can add meaning to your life, but I'm not the meaning of your life. Money, your money, my money, would remind us that it doesn't get much play at a funeral, does it? Other than how much was given away, earning money, chasing it, spending it, that's not the point of life. Money is not the meaning. And this is where we're going. It's a means, isn't it? Remember, it's a means. It's a tool for doing something meaningful. It has the potential to make your life meaningful. Imagine if that was the frame of reference for your finance. Every spending decision, the way you save, the way you plan for the future, regardless of how much or little you have. What if, when we had some to spare, when we had some extra, you thought to yourself, wow, I have extra. How can I make the extra a meaning to something meaningful? How can I make it a means to an end that goes beyond me? What would it look like to live free of the consumption assumption? Instead of making every rain that comes your way a means to something new or shiner or maybe renovated, what if you began to view your money as a means to making your life more meaningful? Meaningful rather than just full of stuff. Now, if you have been thinking this way for the past so many years, your personal finance would look very different, would it? In fact, you would have less stuff, but you would have less debt, you would have more margin, and that is a big one. You would actually probably have more saving, and we'll talk about that in the weeks to come. Now, all of us make financial decisions based on some assumption. Whether we've ever stopped to identify those assumptions or not, and since your financial assumption governs the way you manage your personal finance, you should know who those assumptions are. Well, what are those assumptions are, don't you think? So this week, that's what I would like you to do. I would like you to sit down and discover your financial assumption. Sit with your wife, with your kids, and try to think about, have you ended up in that trap of financial assumption? And over the next few weeks, we will take a closer look at what Jesus says about how we should view and handle our money. I need to warn you that you might have to make some adjustments. You may even have to break a financial habit or two. And if that scares you, it should. Because no one who applies what Jesus says about money to their personal finance ever regrets it. Ever regrets it. No one. The only regret is that they should have started sooner. Besides, You can't be a fully devoted follower of Christ and not invite Him into the realm of your personal finance. Christ will be the Lord of your life when you've got Him on the one side saying, here's what I want you to do, and at the other side you've got your Visa saying to you, well, this is what I want you to do, or your credit card. And to be honest, there is a tension in there, isn't it? Who do you listen to? Jesus or your credit card? Or your Visa card, or whatever it is that you use. You feel like God is nudging you to be generous to charity, or to your local church, or to whatever program that God wants you to nudge you in that direction. But before you can find your bearing, your money might be saying something different to you. And it starts nudging you in that different direction. Or once you find your money, you might find yourself hesitating to add that extra to what God is saying. And that's why God says you can't serve two masters. Because somehow money has a way of speaking louder. And we fall victims to this conception, assumption. And this is a really big deal. This goes way beyond the realm of our personal finance. This is about who's in charge of your life. It's about whether your life will simply be full of stuff or perhaps full of meaning. And in this way, financial issues actually become spiritual issues, don't they? You find yourself making financial decisions based on spiritual decisions. And it starts giving you more meaning. So what you do with your money is an indicator of who and whose you are. So where do we go from here? Well, make sure you come back next Sunday, and we'll be talking about one more assumption that most of us make when it comes to our money and getting that one wrong. It may be the thing that keeps getting you into trouble. Luckily, with what we're going to talk about next Sunday, it's easy to fix. It's easy to fix. Not on your own, mind you, but with the Lord on your side, it's easy to fix. So hopefully you'll be here next Sunday. Amen? Amen. Still love me? God is good. We like that. Great. Let us stay for the benediction.